My parents, who are here today, were in Khartoum. They were in Khartoum for Ramadan when the war broke out. Our family house is in Amarat, which is one of the areas that was worse hit at the beginning because of the proximity to an RSF base. My parents, who are British nationals in their 70s, sorry Mama Baba, they insisted on taking the UK's advice of staying put whilst the Foreign Office figured out how to rescue its citizens. So they waited for 10 days. 10 days of denial that everything is fine, of bullets through windows and running out of food and water, of turning on the generator just enough to let us know they're alive, but not enough to attract the attention of looters, of buildings on either side of our house bombed with neighbours and friends lost. 10 days in which 3 incidents took place between my father and plainclothes soldiers, or so they said, who threatened him with violence as he tried to buy water. Then RSF soldiers who held our house guard at gunpoint came into the house intimidating my father, asking him about his politics and if he was harbouring militants. And finally 3 looters with metal bars who attacked the house looking for petrol before my father, who had lost his patience, started shouting them and scared them. That last incident was the final straw. After pressure from us, their children, and the advice of family in Sudan, they agreed to no longer wait for the British to help. Half an hour later, they'd packed the bag and were ready to leave. It was the right decision, because a few hours later, those looters came back, and there was a lot more than 3. You may remember at the time that the international criticism that was levelled at the UK for how long it took to get its citizens out in comparison to other nations. Incidentally, the UK was the second only to the US to airlift its own embassy staff out. My father would later tell us about how neighbours in Amarat with dual nationality were told to go to their embassies so arrangements could be made for their evacuation. British nationals, on the other hand, after 11 days of receiving advice from the Foreign Office to stay put, were told to make their own way back to an airstrip an hour's drive from the outskirts of Khartoum in Wadi Sidna. No, the British government weren't the ones who saved my parents. They may not be here today if they carried on waiting. It was my cousins in Sudan who helped. Helped them get on a bus which waited for 3 days at a border with Egypt to be processed. My parents would cross safely, leaving the very same people who just rescued. My Sudanese cousins, who aren't British nationals, would stay at that border for 2 months before their visas were processed into Egypt.
The privilege of money has not escaped me. My parents got out. My cousins too, eventually. Millions of others didn't. That guilt is something that every Sudanese who's not in Sudan knows something about.
On that note, this first one is called History Repeats Itself. I feel sick to my stomach, like the walls are caving in, on a world that feels so fractured, I don't even know where to begin. A year on and we're still fighting. A year on and we're still dying. So keen to give us new reasons to be crying. The cycle of violence unleashes itself. The Sudan archives repeat itself. Inside the minds of the pain people, old trauma replays itself, refracturing lives backwards. That's evil. How can there be progress with no justice? I keep asking myself, how can there be progress with no justice? Tell me, do you feel it? A body slumped to the ground from your trigger. Tell me, do you feel it? As the trauma in our country swells even bigger, tell me, do you feel it? The scorn in the eyes as you walk down the street. The pain in the eyes as you prepare for the beat. What lies beneath the surface? A generation of soldiers told they were worthless. A society fractured into so many pieces. The unity of a revolution that was meant to defeat this. A mosaic, or maybe a puzzle, with no way to collect the shards of our country's broken hearts. Painful questions, piercing wounds with broken glass. How many more aids will you take from the people? But much more importantly, how many more shaheeds will you make of the people?
My name is Walid Al Ghadi. I'm an actor and writer. I'm Sudanese. I was born in Sudan and we moved here when I was about 10 years old. The vigil today was to mark a year since the war began, exactly today on the 15th. A year that has seen, the figures are astounding, 8.2 million people displaced, allegedly somewhere between 13 to 15,000 people dead. But we know that's a really small estimation because even just about a month ago, there was over 1,000 people who had to be buried in just one area of Khartoum. Khartoum has become a haven for birds coming from Europe and for dogs to breed because of the number of decomposing bodies. It's heartbreaking. Something that I said in my speech is that a chant that reverberated around the days of the revolution was "الطلقة ما بتقتل بيقتل سكوت الزول," which translates to mean a bullet doesn't kill, what kills is the silence of the people. And that's why we're here really. We're here to stand together as Sudanese and as our allies, but also to tell people, please, keep talking about Sudan, find out about what's happening in Sudan, amplify Sudanese voices, and let us know that you care. Because Sudanese people stand so hard for so many other causes. They're there to all of the other marches, they stand for causes, and we just need the same back. The testimony that I gave was really, well, I sort of introduced it about what happened to my family because my parents were in Sudan. They were visiting during Ramadan, and I shared about what the journey that it was getting them out, because it took us about 3 weeks to get them out. Even though they're British nationals, we had to get them out through Egypt because they were in quite a bit of danger in their own home. But really it was also a testimony more about a project that I've been working on, which is a short film about the testimony as a witness of Hassan, Mohammed Ibrahim Hassan, who is a Darfuri man from a village called Bindisi in West Darfur. And it was the testimony that he's been giving at the ICC against Ali Qusayb, or Ali Muhammad Ali, also known as Ali Qusayb, who's been wanted by the ICC for crimes against humanity, genocide, charges of rape, etc., etc., etc. So it was his testimony, really. I read bits of what he gave as a witness on the stand, and as tough as it was to speak about what he's experienced, him and his family, the journey that he's taken, I also really wanted to impart about the beauty of the message of compassion that he has towards even the perpetrators who did some of the most hideous things towards him. And I think it's such a lesson that he talks about, that what is important right now is just peace. We need peace in Sudan. So yeah, that's what I spoke about, and I couldn't end this better. We just need peace in Sudan. Well, how you can help is really by connecting with so many of the organizations like Madaniya for Sudan, London for Sudan, Sudan World, Updates for Sudan. These are all Instagram and Twitter accounts that you can go, and then you can find out about various ways you can either donate, write to your representatives. You know, the roots of this war, the money trail goes deep, and there are representatives that you could be writing to, whether it be internationally or in this country, saying, what are you doing? Or asking for the war to stop, whether that be by special envoy that needs to go there, whether that be by increasing the number of aid that's needed to go to Sudan. We need it to stop. So, yeah, if we can't do any of those things, the very least we ask you is to learn about Sudan, to talk about Sudan, to amplify Sudanese voices, to tell your friends, and to come to the marches. There'll be another one on, I think it's on the 1st of June, to commemorate the 3rd of June massacre that happened in Sudan. The dates for it will be on, again, one of those accounts that I mentioned. Come to that march. We need to know that people are standing with us. Come and support us.